Welcome to tonight's virtual program. It is in celebration of Earth Day, which is actually on Wednesday, the 22nd, but we like to be early, so we're celebrating today, or starting our celebration, actually. My name is Alice Wind. I am the Digital History and Engagement Associate at the TRPL, and I am so happy to be joined tonight by our very own Sustainability Coordinator, Addison Olson. Sometimes we have folks from outside of the institution give talks, and today we have one of our very own. Before I hand it over to Addison, we have a lot of A names here. I wanted to get us started with a little icebreaker question. So we are in Medora, North Dakota, and it is a very beautiful day here, unseasonably warm, very lovely. So if you could put in the chat where you're tuning in from and what it's like where you're tuning in from today. So without further ado, Addison.
All right, thank you, Alice. I appreciate it, and I'm excited to be here. Like she said, I'm the sustainability coordinator here at TRPL, and what that means is we have a really green, very sustainable building, and it's my job to make sure our operations are meeting that standard for sustainability. We have lots of certifications, a lot of paperwork that goes with those certifications. So I have a pretty cool job here. I get to meet a lot of cool people, and I'm excited to tell everybody about what some of those awesome features are that make us a extremely sustainable building, one of the greenest in the world. So I guess the first thing I want to talk about is why. Why are we a green building? Why are we a living building? And the real reason is because Theodore Roosevelt is known as the conservation president. A lot of that ethos that he developed happened here while he was healing from his losses when he visited the Badlands. And that's why this is called the cradle of conservation here. And so choosing to have the library in this spot, we are really choosing to continue that legacy that started here in the Badlands, and that is conservation. And sustainability really is conservation. It's just a different term. So Theodore Roosevelt, he protected millions of acres of land. He protected animals, and he has this huge legacy that is very respected here. And so we are taking that conservation legacy and we're asking ourselves, what would Theodore Roosevelt do if he were still alive today? How can we carry that on and do even more than he did when he was around? And so that is why Snow Hedda, our architects, decided they really wanted to pursue this living building challenge and some of the other certifications that we have on top of that. So the certifications that Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library is set to achieve are LEED Platinum, CITES Platinum, and the Living Building Challenge. Just a brief overview of what those are. LEED Platinum, it recognizes the highest level of performance in energy efficiency, water conservation, material selection, and indoor environmental quality. So basically the built structure itself is as healthy as it can possibly be. It's made sustainably as possible with the right materials. CITES Platinum is a lot like LEED. It's kind of a checkmark system, and it really celebrates the site itself, so the outdoor elements of our campus. And that has to do with our ecosystem management, our site restoration, the native plants that we use, and the way that we maintain our site. So that's what CITES is. And then we have the Living Building Challenge. We will be full living certified. There's only 35 buildings in the world total that have that certification. So that's why I say we are going to be one of the greenest in the world. It's because not many have this, and it is the most rigorous certification. So on top of this, we do have goals. We have the goal of zero energy, zero water, zero waste, zero carbon. I'm sorry, I'm coming off a cold, so if I start coughing, it might happen. But we did prepare some videos to describe these. So I'm gonna send it off to Marcy to start with energy.
Hi, I am Addison. I'm the Sustainability Coordinator here at the Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library. And today I'm going to give you a behind the scenes tour of some of the things that make our building one of the most sustainable in the world. So come with me. Right now, we are in what is kind of known as the energy park of TRPL. Above us are what we call our solar canopies. These provide 20% of the energy that our building needs, and we'll have other solar panels off-site that will provide 85%. If you did the math there, that is 105% of our solar needs or our energy needs. That is because we are actually net positive for energy here at TRPL. So very exciting. Below us, we have what are called geothermal wells, and those actually use the Earth's core temperature to heat and cool our building as well. So it's a very efficient system, and it's a really exciting part of our sustainability story here. We also encourage electric vehicle use, so we do have EV chargers on our site that uses the same power that we would be generating for our site, and that also lessens our carbon emissions as well. When you're using our EV chargers, or if we're plugging things into our building, we're actually using energy that we are generating, which is very cool. So a lot of that does happen right there in the parking lot.
Yeah, thanks for that, Addison. It's amazing to think that our sustainability story starts in the parking lot. You know, that's such an interesting aspect of the institution. One thing I was wondering when you're talking about, you know, the percentages, why 105? Why are we shooting for 105?
Great question. So that's actually a Living Building Challenge requirement. They require you to go above and beyond energy production. And so 105 is actually the benchmark for them. They want to make sure that all the buildings with their certification exceeds the amount that they need. And then we actually give that right back into the grid. And so we're feeding the grid with our energy production, which is pretty awesome.
Wow.
Yeah. I also think it's interesting that it's in the parking lot. I mean, you wouldn't think of a parking lot as an energy park, but that's what ours is. And it's a really, really unique part of our story. Our second zero, we like to call them the 4 zeros, is carbon. So we will be zero carbon with the goal of in the future being net positive carbon if our carbon sequestration, which I'll explain to you in a little bit, goes well. So we do have another video, and Marcy's going to show you a little bit about that story.
Well, we are zero carbon as well, and that has a ton of different strategies that we've had to implement. Now I'm going to tell you about our carbon story by talking about some of the materials that we use, especially here in the breezeway. Our actual structure to our building is made out of mass timber, mostly. We do have some steel beams in there because our building is so heavy. We do have a grass roof, and there's a lot of dirt and layers on there. But we do have about, I've heard, between either a 70% timber versus 30% steel infrastructure, which is really unique, especially for heavy buildings. So we do have our timber beams. They are made of Douglas fir, and you can see them really beautifully in the breezeway area, and they are also exposed in different parts of the building. Very, very unique, low carbon material instead of using all steel. Another thing that we use as far as materials go is low carbon concrete. Dickinson Ready Mix actually created a low carbon concrete using fly ash from local coal plants. And this low carbon concrete is used all throughout our building. It was not something that they had made before. So they actually created this specifically for our project. And since they created it, they've actually used it in other projects as well. So that's just kind of an example of how we are leading to make change in other situations as well. So that's really cool. The rammed earth wall is a great example of a low carbon solution, and it's also really beautiful. So some of these solutions are also aesthetically pleasing as well. The rammed earth wall is basically made out of compacted dirt, which is in itself low carbon. It's also mostly created using manpower. There were pneumatic hammers involved, but a lot of manpower. And so without the use of these tools that require energy, this was a very low carbon way of building.
Yes. Yeah, I love how you make the point that a lot of these sustainable solutions are actually quite beautiful as well. So I was wondering, you talk a lot about the timber reuse. Is any of the timber on the site reclaimed?
Yes, yeah, we do have actually quite a bit of reclaimed wood on our site. Notably on the roof, we have a lot of benches as well as the lining to the path that leads all the way up our roof. It's all made out of reclaimed timber mats from construction sites. And so normally it's just what heavy machinery drives over, but now we've turned it into something beautiful that people can sit on and relax, or just to line the pathways, and they look great, very functional, and again, reclaimed materials. So another part of our low carbon story and just our reuse story.
That's fantastic. And just before we get any further, I wanted to make sure to let everyone know there will be a Q&A at the end. So if you have a question for Addison, feel free to drop that in the chat anytime.
Please send me questions. I'd love to answer them. I love to have these conversations and talk to people who are excited about this, because I definitely am. Our next zero is waste, zero waste. This has been sort of a passion project for me in this whole story. When I first started, basically the first project that was thrown at me was waste management, which sounds super fun and exciting. And it is actually way more fun and exciting than you'd ever think. Zero waste in North Dakota, especially in a rural part of North Dakota, is very difficult. So we've been really creative about how we've approached that. So I'll let Marcy take it away with the video, and then I'll do a little more explaining about what some of these things are.
At TRPL, we will be zero waste. Zero waste typically means about 90% diversion rate. So how are we going to do that? That starts right here. And Stewardship Center. This is basically the headquarters of our maintenance as well as our waste operations. This is where our biodigester lives. The problem with traditional compost is that it actually takes a few months to cure, and that creates a storage problem for us. If we don't want to have big piles of compost on our site, we can't have regular compost. So we actually contacted a company, where we were contacted by a company called Ecotone Renewables, who had a solution that we thought was perfect for us. And that is a anaerobic biodigester. It sounds super complicated, but it basically works like a stomach. It has different chemicals in it that break down food and turn it into a liquid waste instead of a solid waste. And that liquid waste can be then used as a fertilizer on crops, on gardens, on our site. When we talk about zero waste, it's a really difficult challenge to overcome, especially in a rural area that doesn't have a lot of zero waste infrastructure. We have partnered with Dickinson Recycling, who have been an incredible asset for us and a great partner, who is expanding their recycling center.
Yes, so I was wondering, I know you've talked a lot in the past about how we're replacing at the library a lot of things that would typically be single-use plastic with aluminum.
Yes.
So could you talk a little bit about the advantages of aluminum?
Absolutely. Yeah. So just to go back to what you are mentioning, what Alice is saying is we are actually trying to eliminate waste at the source. So not only are we going to have only compostable or recyclable aluminum materials given to our patrons, our participants, but we're also going back even a step further to our vendors, and we're making sure they're not bringing things on site that have a lot of excess plastic packaging. And any shipments that come in, we try to reach out and ask for as little shipping packaging as possible. That way, less comes in, less is being used. And so again, Theodore Roosevelt really did believe in eliminating pollution at the source. He was talking more about air pollution and things. This wasn't as big of an issue maybe then as it is now, and there wasn't as much plastic pollution like it is. So we're really combating that. We're trying to combat it at the source. We are eliminating all single-use plastics in our building, and that includes soda bottles and things of that nature. So instead, we've really, if we can't have something compostable, which is our number one, we are choosing to do aluminum instead. And the reason aluminum is a better option in the long run is that, one, it doesn't create microplastic pollution, which has been an increasing issue. It also can be infinitely recycled. So plastic, as it gets recycled, it breaks down and it can't be used the same every time, and eventually it can't be used at all. Aluminum, it can be turned into the same thing every single time. Aluminum is a more valuable material in itself. You can actually sell aluminum cans. I know a lot of people that do it. My grandpa actually does that. So, you know, going back to that source. So aluminum is infinitely recyclable. It is known to be recyclable. More people tend to know that they can recycle an aluminum can. And so they're more likely to throw it in the recycling versus a plastic bottle. So lots of reasons that aluminum is a better option. But again, reuse is always the best option. So anytime we have the opportunity to not make waste is obviously the number one choice. So reusable utensils, glass plates that we can actually wash and reuse. But yeah, we're going back and we're finding ways that we can reduce it at the source and then using highly recyclable materials or compostable. The biodigester I'm very excited about. That was compost was kind of an issue that we needed to solve for. And so being able to find something through Ecotone Renewables that really seems to meet our needs is great. And it creates this liquid fertilizer that is called soil sauce, which I think has a really fun name, that we can either sell or give away or use on our own site. It's a really fun new way. So I'm excited to learn a little bit more about that. And I think it'll be a great addition to our story. Our next 4-0 is zero water. So I'm gonna let Marcy take it away with the next video.
This is where the water story of TRPL really takes place. We do have a zero water goal as well at TRPL, and we do this in a few different ways. We have low flow fixtures that don't require as much water use to run, so that's low flow toilets and sinks and things. We also have this water treatment facility, and what it does is it takes all of the black and gray water that comes down our drains and it filters it and recycles it and then uses it for our toilet flushing, for our irrigation systems, and for our fire suppression. We do have something called bioswales on our site. And what that does is it actually mimics the way that the water would run off naturally before we even built. So there are these small kind of holding ponds is what they look like, but they don't hold water for long. And they all are connected with a drainage system. And all of the water that comes down onto our site gets collected in these bioswales and then runs off. It prevents erosion, and then it makes sure that all that water is being released into the Little Missouri watershed like we.
All right. Yeah, I had never heard of bioswales before, and I think it's such a fun, it's such a novel system to be able to return that water that would typically cause erosion. I was wondering though, you hear a lot about rain barrels and rainwater collection. Why is that not part of our strategy?
Yeah, I'm actually really glad you asked that. Many living buildings actually use rainwater as a solution to, their zero water goals. We did decide not to go that avenue, and the reason is because this area doesn't receive that much precipitation, and we don't want to take from the watershed. If we were collecting that water, it wouldn't drain into the Little Missouri anymore, and we could potentially be, holding that and monopolizing it. And we didn't want to do that. We are very conscious about the water and the watershed and wanting to make sure it's all following natural pathways. And if we had collected rainwater, it just wouldn't do that. We decided it's a lot better for our native plants and for the area for us to just let the water flow as it would. But we are directing it to the places that we want it to go. And again, that's mimicking where it had already been going before we built on site. You could tell by where the erosion was already happening. And so we're actually mitigating the erosion where it was happening. So it's still draining there, but we're still dispersing it enough where it's not going to cause as much erosion as it would have. We are built on the top of a butte, and we are fairly close to the edge. And we don't want anything happening where that edge is eroding and eroding and eroding. We want to protect our building. So that is one huge plus for the bioswales as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. I did want to talk a little bit about our water treatment plant. It is called a mini MBR. Again, this is going to be a little technical talk, but it's a membrane bioreactor. It's a mini one. It's very cool. I think we should give it a name because to me, it's one of the coolest things in our building, and I get really excited to go look at it. But what it really does is it uses microorganisms to break down, some of the nasty stuff in the water. It cleans it out, and then it passes through a membrane to then filter it even more. And by the time it's done with the whole process, the water itself is probably clean enough to drink. We're not going to be doing that. It's not potable, so it'll only be used to flush toilets and for irrigation and things. But these systems are really efficient, and they're really great at cleaning that water. So really a neat system, and hopefully anybody who visits gets to go on the sustainability tour and to see that system. Our last is not a 4.0, so we do have the 4 zeros, but we also have a heavy ecological restoration initiative here at TRPL. So I'm going to let Marcy play our last video that has to do with that.
Really important part of our story is our ecological restoration practices, and that has to do with land management. It has to do with the Native Plant Project, and it's a really, really important part of our story and our continuation of Theodore Roosevelt's legacy. Some of the ways that we do this is, again, the Native Plant Project is a huge project, a huge undertaking by some of the most creative people on our team. They had the idea that there was no North Dakota seed mix available to plant on our site. So they just thought, why don't we make one? And they did. These all were picked here, grown elsewhere, and then put back on our site, effectively restoring the native prairie plants that had been eliminated due to overgrazing and fire. That is just one way that we are contributing to this ecological restoration. This will hopefully provide ecosystems for some native animals to return, like our western meadowlarks and our grouse. Some of the ways that we're being really creative with our land management practices are trying to emulate this prairie ecosystem. So one of those ways is to kind of mimic a bison grazing pattern. We cannot have bison on our site for obvious reasons, mostly that they're dangerous. So our best option is to use cattle, but to move them around in a way that mimics the way that bison would have grazed. So we do that with an adaptive multi-paddock grazing system where cattle, small amount of cattle, will be put onto site and then rotated from one paddock to the next until about 50% of the grass has been grazed down in those spots. We also have a lot of skylights on the roof, which you'll be able to see as well, and solar tubes. So these are a lot of different ways that we try to be more efficient in our energy use. If we can use natural lighting instead of having to turn on lights, that is much better. So we have our skylights. There's 12 skylights. They're really large. They're also made to look like buttes so that they kind of blend in. They're beautiful in my opinion. And those bring lights into the larger portions of our building, like the lobby, and mostly it's the lobby areas that generates. And they're beautiful to look at from both the top and the bottom. And then we have our solar tubes, which act similarly to skylights, where they bring in the sun's rays into the building, but they're a little more controlled. So they're used in the smaller spaces that need to have a little more control over their lighting, such as the office areas and the narrative gallery space. The narrative galleries specifically have artifacts in there, so we can't necessarily have direct sunlight on them all the time. That could damage them. So we need to be able to control that light, and that's what we can do with the solar tubes. Along with that, our building, if you notice, is surrounded by windows. There's windows all the way around. 95% of our employee spaces have access to sunlight. That is another living building challenge requirement. And that has to do with happiness. Not only sunlight itself to eliminate energy use, but also the happiness of our employees and our visitors. sunlight makes people happy. So we try to provide that as much as possible.
Yes, I love our green roof. I think
Mhm.
it is just such a perfect encapsulation of everything we're standing for with these sustainability initiatives. But I wonder, we have these 93 acres of our property that we're restoring to the prairie ecosystem. So I was wondering, why also have a green roof?
That's a great question. We didn't necessarily have to have a green roof in order to meet our certifications, but that was just mainly a design choice. Part of what made us go with Snowhetta as an architecture firm was the fact that they wanted to blend the library into the landscape. They wanted to make the library a part of that landscape so that if you are looking across from the national park to our library site, you can barely see it. Theodore Roosevelt loved this land. He loved the way it looked. He fell in love with the ruggedness. And so to have an imposing building on the top of a butte was not really part of our mission. It wouldn't be what he would have wanted. So Snowhetta created this green roof to really just make our library one with the landscape, to really emulate that love of the landscape that Theodore Roosevelt had. So yeah, I love the green roof too. I'm really glad they went with that because it's beautiful. It's really cool to walk up to and see the native plants up close and personal. And I just really love that. So those are our 4 zeros and our native plant project we talked about a little bit. I know some people maybe watching were a part of that. We did have locals come and pick seeds for that to then be turned into plants. There's currently, on the roof, there's about 140,000 individual native plants planted, which is incredible, hand planted. And then on the site currently, there's a little over 200,000 that have been planted. And overall, when all the planting's done, there will be about 400,000 native plants total that were grown and then planted individually. The rest will be seeded once construction is done and we can seed all of those areas that were disturbed. So really incredible work with the Native Plant Project. I mean, shout out to Jen and Amy and Allison for their work on that and anybody else that was involved. So yeah, very exciting stuff. I can't wait for people to come see it and walk on the roof and really feel that. And you can see the view and all the buttes surrounding you. It's awesome. Yeah. And that's really all that I have. I'm really excited to answer some questions. But before that, I do want to shout out, it's not Earth Day today, but we are celebrating Earth Day. That's why we're talking about sustainability and conservation. On Wednesday, which is Earth Day, we're actually going to be partnering with the Medora Foundation here in town, as well as the National Park and the Demorest Elementary School students. And we're going to do kind of a community cleanup day. So I just wanted to give them a shout out. Thank you for the people that will be helping us, pick up trash and recycle and clean the community up for a really great season. We're really excited to be a part of the community. So we really just want to give back and work together. So I think that's everything. I do also want to just kind of give a call to action. I am a sustainability coordinator and I do really care about, our impact on the environment, obviously. So this Earth Day, go do something, to give back. Plant a tree, pick up some litter. I don't know, rake a neighbor's yard.
Yes.
Do something. I'm just going to challenge everybody to do that.
Yes, and I love the community aspect of Earth Day as well. We'll be coming together as a community to, show our appreciation for Medora and clean it up in preparation for a really big summer for us. And I encourage you all to think about how you can show up for your communities as well on Wednesday.
Yeah.
So now, without further ado, we can shift to our Q&A.
I'm gonna cough one more time. Answer some questions.
Has very generously still appeared with us today, even though she's getting over a cold.
I apologize. Okay, I think I'm ready.
Okay.
I am excited to read off some questions that we have in the chat here. So we've got a nice one to start with. Can anyone practice sustainability at home? Like, are there any sort of ways that would be an easy way to integrate into someone's life?
Totally. I think the easiest ways right now, depending on where you are, and really these can be done anywhere. Recycling is sometimes hard depending on your community's infrastructure, what they can, if you have a recycling center nearby, then obviously you can recycle. So I highly encourage that. You'd be surprised how much waste you divert when you recycle. I would say about over half of the waste I have at my house goes into the recycling bin versus the trash. It's really cool to see. You can really, it's a visual impact. Another thing that you could do anywhere, and regardless if there's a structure for it or not, is compost. Composting is really, really great for the environment. A lot of that food waste gives off methane gas, which is even more harmful than carbon in the environment. So if you can actually turn your food waste into dirt, it's way better. And you could do that either under the sink with a little kitchen. I know my grandma used to have a little Folgers container that she'd put her eggshells and coffee grounds in and then go throw it out into the garden or something, you know. That's an easy way to do it. And again, you divert so much waste by just doing that. If you want to go a step further, you can have a compost bin in your yard. They make tumblers, which are really cool. Or you could just have literally a pit that you toss stuff in, mix it up. Every once in a while, it turns into dirt. It's great for your gardens. It's great if you have people to give it to, or maybe you can use it at home. But really, it's an easy way to give back. And those would be my two really big suggestions. Also, take a reusable cup to the coffee shop. Most coffee shops allow you to bring your own cup. Some even give discounts if you do. I don't know if anyone around here does that, but I do know that some do. And it's just a really easy way to not generate waste. You know, you go get a coffee every morning, bring your own cup. That's like 5 less things that go in the trash can. So those are some tips that I would give to people.
Wonderful. And I have to highlight, we got a very nice comment in the chat by someone who is a former teacher of Addison. And they wanted to say that they are so proud of you and all the amazing work that she does. And I think Alice and I will double down and say that we are also proud of Addison and all the work that she does.
Yeah, we have that in common.
Yes, thank you. I really appreciate that. Don't make me cry on camera.
We have a question here about Snow Hedda. Could you speak a little bit more about how they fit into the sort of conservation ethos on site?
Yeah, I can a little bit. I can't speak for Snow Hedda specifically, but I do work pretty closely with them. They have, well, one, their team themselves are the ones that wanted to pursue these strenuous certifications that have to do with sustainability. One, to emulate Theodore Roosevelt's vision, you know. But what they do to work with us is they have landscape architects and they're architects themselves. They're helping with the materials. They're designing the systems that we have that actually help us be sustainable. So really, they're ingrained in this practice. I also have to shout out JLG architects. So Snow Hedda designed our building and are obviously a huge part of our process, but JLG is our architect of record. So they're actually here on site really building this place, and J.E. Dunn, who's also building this place. And the fact that it's a sustainable building made it a little bit difficult to build, because if you're looking at that breezeway with the mass timber beams, none of them had the same angles. Every single angle in there was different, and J.E. Dunn had to deal with that and build that, and that's hard work. So yeah, I would say Snow Hedda, obviously their design and their intent to be the sustainable building is really a huge impact, and they're very much ingrained in that process.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of our partners have been just so fantastic. Yeah. I would love to jump in with a question of my own, taking kind of host privilege here. But I'm wondering how you see our sustainable practices evolving as the years go on.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we are obviously contained on our site, and we have our goals, our zero waste. I'm going to specifically maybe focus on. We can do that ourselves, but I see us evolving into where we're helping the community either implement those practices. We can be a resource for others if they want to try it. We can maybe be a resource for others, like say maybe depending on how much compost we get from our own building, if we can have the capacity to take it from community members, if they want to start composting, we want to do that. We will have community garden, and we'll have a medicinal garden, and so we really want to be like a resource for the community in, you know, all of the sustainable practices. practices. And then hopefully we'll help expand the recycling center in Dickinson, and maybe some of the smaller communities around can have a recycling program. So really just building out, becoming leaders, and encouraging others to use best practices when it comes to sustainability and conservation in general. That's definitely a long-term goal. And just education in general, educating people. How do you compost? How do you recycle? What can be recycled? It's something that not everybody knows, and so we can provide that.
Yes, yeah. I love that attitude, because I think there's a bit of a learning curve.
Yeah.
Especially with composting.
Yes, definitely.
And I think that can get in people's way to actually, implementing these.
A lot of things that get in the way are really, it's easier to throw something away.
Yeah.
And that's true. But if we can make it more accessible to recycle or make it more accessible to compost, and show that really it's not that different. If you're throwing something away, you're just putting it in a different container.
Yeah.
Or you're throwing something away, but it's also becoming useful in your own garden. That's something that we can teach people, and I think that that's a way we're going to have a big impact.
All right. We have someone in the chat who's interested in the MBR. Are those used in other buildings in the area, across the country? Could you speak more about that?
I wish I could speak more on the MBR, because it's really cool. And I do know that other living buildings, so part of the living building challenge is a zero water. You have to have a net zero water. And so I do know other living buildings do have that, especially the ones that are specifically focused on their water reuse. I couldn't tell you exactly which ones, but I definitely recommend looking it up. It's a cool system that I definitely want to learn more about. And I totally will, because I want to be able to answer those questions. But that's a great question. Yeah, I wish I could answer more.
I'm very interested in the fact that we have a mini MBR.
Yes.
So what is a full size?
And it's pretty big. If you've seen it, it's not small.
It's the size of a room.
Yes, it's a whole room. So a regular MBR has to be huge.
Is that for a football field?
If there's anybody in the audience who has any information on the MBR, please drop it in the chat. I want to know.
This is how we're going to find out what a macro MBR looks like.
It's awesome.
All right, last question.
Okay, and then we have one sort of question here. Addison, people have figured out that you used to be a teacher before this.
Yes.
How did you make the sort of jump between being a superstar teacher to a superstar sustainability coordinator for the Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library?
That's a great question. I'd love to answer. So yeah, I did. I taught middle school actually for 5 years. I taught in Hazen, North Dakota. Go Bison. And I taught in Spearfish, South Dakota. Go Spartans. And after that, I knew that the library was hiring. I'm from the area. I lived here for a little while, and I'm from South Art. So I knew about the library. I knew they were starting to hire. I was curious, so I looked, and there was a position for a project coordinator role, and I was intrigued. So I applied, and I ended up getting that role. And again, it was just project coordinator. But when I started, my heavy projects that I was working on had to do with sustainability. And quickly, my supervisor, Jen, kind of noticed that it was something that I was passionate about. It was something that I kind of took and went with. And so she ended up saying, hey, how do you feel about being just sustainability coordinator and focusing heavily on this project? And so that's where I am now. I just went to Seattle for the Living Futures Conference, got to meet a lot of people in this same role. And it's been a learning curve for sure, teaching history to this whole sustainability project of this building, and learning the systems and learning the terminology it's been so rewarding. And again, it's difficult to learn something new, but I'm so glad I did it. And so, for anybody out there, if you think you can't do something, you can. You just have to try.
Yes, and I feel like that is so true of TR's ethos that we are trying to replicate here or honor as best we can.
Definitely.
So thank you so much, Addison,
Thank you.
for joining us today. I think, speak for the institution and say that we are so lucky to have you here as our sustainability coordinator, and I can't wait to see how our sustainability initiatives grow and change as the years go on. Is there anything you'd like to plug?
If anybody has any more questions that I didn't get to, or just has a story to share, I do have I have a email. It's sustainability@trlibrary.com. If you want to jump in there and ask me any questions, give me suggestions. I'm always learning, so I love to learn new things. Please, that's sustainability@trlibrary.com.
And is there anything we might be doing to celebrate Earth Day starting in 2027?
Thank you for reminding me, Marcy. Yes. So part of the reason we want to celebrate Earth Day this year and why we're doing a virtual program about it is that once we're open, so starting next year, Earth Day will be free to the public. Anybody can come to our site, see the museum. Every Earth Day will be a free public access day.
Wow.
Yes. So please, great opportunity for you to come in, celebrate Earth Day with us, and see our beautiful building.
Yes, and if this year is any good indication, the weather will be beautiful and it'll be a great day to experience our library. So I will close us out a little bit here. So we are 74 days out from opening on July 4th. And so tickets are available now through the end of 2026. So if you're interested in coming to visit us in person, please do so. Buy your tickets now. Also, if you are looking for a more permanent experience with us, we do have open positions available also. So if you'd like to come work with us, please do so. We would love to have you.
Come work with us.
So yes, buy tickets and come work with us. And happy Earth Day on Wednesday. Today is not Earth Day. Happy early
Earth Day.
And have a great night, everyone.